Three, two, one. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another exciting film journey here on Inside Movies Galore. I am one of your hosts, but today we are continuing our Animation April themed month with another choice that was chosen. Now, who should I give this over to? Brandon? Were you?
And to Forrest.
Forrest.
Yes.
Okay. Then, Forrest, why don't you tell us a little bit about what we went and watched?
All right. So this week we watched, discuss, or watch and discuss. We watched and tonight we're discussing Batman: The Dark Knight Returns, a two-part animated movie from Warner Brothers and DC Entertainment, directed by Jay Oliva, and based on the comic book DC comic book Batman: The Dark Knight Returns by Frank Miller, with a screenplay by Bob Goodman. And we've got an all-star cast here. Between both parts, you've got Peter Weller as Batman, Ariel Winter as Robin, David Selby as Commissioner Gordon, Wade Williams as Harvey Dent as Harvey Dent / Two-Face, Michael Emerson as the Joker, D. Bradley Baker doing multiple voices, Maria Canals Barrera as Commissioner Yindel, Michael McKean as Dr. Bartholomew Wolper, Mark Valley as Superman, Robin Atkin Downs as Oliver Queen / Green Arrow, Chris McNeil as Selena Kyle, also Bruno, and then you've got Conan O'Brien as David Endicrin, Andy Richter as his sidekick, Tara Strong doing additional voices, Frank Welker as Mayor Stevenson, Deputy Mayor Stevenson, Rob Paulson, Townsend Coleman. Oh, I would say Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles reunion right here between Rob Paulson and Townsend Coleman. Michael Jackson as Alfred, but not that Michael Jackson. Richard Doyle as the mayor of Gotham City. Paget Brewster as Lana Lang. It's just an all-star. I mean, huge. Yeah, this is a very stacked cast. I could go on for all day with that. We got music by Christopher Drake. And so the movie, okay, Christopher Drake, and I think it's yes. So the plot is so after at 10 is Batman has retired from Gotham. Batman has retired. Has been in retirement for 10 years after the death of Jason Todd, the second Robin. But crime in Gotham. There's a new breed of a new crime from a gang crime is on the rise in Gotham City again, forcing an aging Bruce Wayne back into action as Batman. And finding himself taking on some of his old arch enemies. So we'll go around and get first impressions. Starting to my left, Dave, is this your first time watching Batman: The Dark Knight Returns?
It is, and I had actually originally had the Blu-ray DVD, but then I picked it up on this 15 or was it 18 movie set? Yeah, Blu-ray set.
I know that's
and it's got ton of DC Universe movies on it, including some older ones. Although I wish that Sub-Zero Freeze or whatever the fuck
Sub-Zero.
Yeah, I wish that one would have been on the set too. But in any case, saw these for the first time, and parts of it were interesting. At least I liked the second part better than I liked the first part. I'll be honest. And maybe it's because I like the Joker better as a character than Two-Face. Even though I like Two-Face, and I think it's a strong story. So, I don't know. Maybe I thought it was an interesting concept where he got his space plastic surgery on the other side, and he was still fucking evil, you know. So, but as far as animation wise, of course, always they make the DC characters like big and like big, largely shaped, you know. Seems to be like a thing where they make them monstrous looking. But I liked the look of Gordon. I liked the look of an aging Batman. I thought it was an interesting concept where he's kind of an elderly Batman. You know, not quite like bent over crooked man, but definitely long in the tooth. You know,
I would say he's 55 years old in this movie.
Yeah, so I thought that was interesting. Selena Kyle, oh my God, is she aged not well?
The Joker was actually dead on with that one.
But I thought that the second part made up for the first part. So that being said, I enjoyed it. I wouldn't mind rewatching it in the future. As I get older, I'm like 50-50 when it comes to animations, and I like the fact that they changed up Robin, and that she was that Robin's character is interchangeable, you know? Where instead of having Dick Grayson, we get a girl, you know.
Right.
But other than that, yeah, I enjoyed it, and I thought it was interesting as seeing Batman fight the police as well.
Right.
Other than that, I was entertained, and I'm glad that I saw it. So thank you for choosing this.
Very good. Thank you very much. And thank you for that, Dave. And Brandon, first impressions. Is this your first time watching the Batman: The Dark Knight Returns?
Yes, actually, my first time to this story. Period. Which is kind of sad because I was a bit of a comic book geek back in the day. And of course, I fell out of it in the mid 2000s, like 2006, 2007. I just started like falling out of it.
Mm-hmm.
But this is a really fun story, and I'm sad that I missed it because I'd heard about it. But I'll admit, most of my concentration was in Marvel, and only a little bit of Batman dabbling.
See, I like both DC and Marvel, but because of Batman, I am a DC fan first and foremost.
I was into Green Lantern for a while Kyle Reiner had the ring. But I was, and I came back to Batman when they had that Jim Lee run. Hush, and also for the Red Hood. And I had a couple of stories where I've been back and forth with it. But this one was a fun story. It reminds me of a lot of these other like stories of kind of what if something would happen, like Superman Red Sun or some of those where it's kind of a future in a different reality almost.
Right. This is kind of this is kind of the grandfather of aging superhero stories about aging superheroes and alternate timelines.
And though I would agree with Dave, some of the best fights definitely occur in the second half. The first half is my favorite just because I like seeing Batman kicking butt. And he, for the most part, kicks butt, comes out on top, but in a different way in the first part than he does the second part. So, but it was fun both ways. I also love how every time he talks to the female Robin, all right, you do it this way and exactly this way, or you're fired. It's like every time.
Right.
I don't know if he does that in the comics, but it is hilarious how he does.
Well, actually, no. He not only tells her to do this or you're fired, but he has to keep telling her to sit up.
So it was a very fun romp. I'm very glad to see it. It gave me an excuse to crack open that giant Blu-ray set I have of all those Batman animated features. So I'm just glad to knock 2 more off of that. So that's good. I enjoy it, though. I do kind of always miss the talent of the Batman animated series talent. I still did enjoy these voice actors and what they did.
Indeed.
Right, that's my run.
All right, over to you, Jake. First impressions. This is your first time watching Batman: The Dark Knight Returns.
Sounds like we got a bunch of first-time watchers tonight.
Yeah.
This is the first time on this one. I've had it sitting on the shelf for a little while. I think Brandon probably kicked it over to me when he got that big set. I've been wanting to watch it, but not really wanting to watch it. I've seen the bulk of the Batman animated movies, but this is one where I did read the comic. I think I read it 5 years ago, if I had to pin a date on it, but plus or minus a year or so. I never read it when I was younger, but I know I picked it up and read it once I was working at the library, because it is considered one of the seminal graphic novels. Like it's one of the things Frank Miller is most heavily associated with, for one. And also, it is obvious that both the Zack Snyder Batman v Superman and from there just Batfleck generally, and also the Joker, it's obvious that both of those were heavily influenced by
Absolutely. Even Christopher Nolan, even Tim Burton and Christopher Nolan are clearly inspired by it.
I was going to say as well, this and The Killing Joke together kind of wrested control of Batman back from Batman 66 and paved the way for Batman, the animated series, all the stuff that became, for me, like the quintessential Batman.
Oh, for sure.
Probably wouldn't have been possible without those two comics, this one and The Killing Joke. And I will say, on my first read through, I did not enjoy this half as much as The Killing Joke. In fact, there's a lot about the story that really kind of ticks me off. What they do in envisioning a 10 years older Selena Kyle is just one of them.
I would say that's definitely Frank that's one of Frank Miller's flaws.
Yeah,
how he writes and designs women.
You're right. And I will admit this Robin is a bit thin on character, but she's a fun Robin. She doesn't piss me off the way Damian does, and she's not really even as Jason's important to the story here. I'm trying to remember exactly when the Death in the Family comic occurred. If that
Death in the Family was 1988, so 2 years after this comic, after the Dark Knight Returns comic book came out.
So they envisioned his death, and then DC must have gotten an idea and gone, "Wait a minute, people like that."
I think readers were, because at the time, I think at the time DC didn't expect this to be weren't planning on making this like an alternate reality thing.
Yeah.
It had been officially set in its own universe, but I think after reading after hinting that Jason had been killed in action, I think there was readers had that. There was an expectation from the readers that it would be addressed in the regular monthly series.
I think also the fact that this supposedly took place about 10 years. It says 10 years I guess 10 years after his retirement. I don't know if it really specifies how far in the future it is from the actual DC timeline at that time.
Yeah.
But Jason's death was one of a handful of things that kind of precipitated they apparently there was a big uprising against metahumans and all this kind of stuff.
Mhm.
And, as we go on, we'll probably hit on a lot of that stuff. But, so it's probably, I would guess, more like 15 years in the future, or at least. But still, when you think about it, that does imply that Batman was pushing 40 in the regular continuity, which is
Actually, I was saying because he's 55 in this, and it's 10 years after he retired, so
right.
he would have been 45 when he hung up the cape and cowl.
Right.
And I think, if I had to guess, because it's clear that this story is set in the 80s because Ronald Reagan is president.
Oh yeah. It's full of 80s isms.
Yeah, so I think this is, and so I think this is supposed to be. He's supposed to be the original Golden Age Batman from the 30s and 40s.
Okay.
Like if he had aged in real time.
Right. Well, I believe at one point Gordon makes an allusion to Pearl Harbor and makes it sound like he was there.
Yeah.
And so that kind of also helps set the timeline, I guess, a little bit. But because he, I think, was in his 70s.
He was 70.
70. So, yeah, that helps set the timeline, too. But anyway, so that's all the background on this one. I had read a graphic novel, and I had thought, well, this is interesting, but it's really dark. And but I remembered a lot of it. It stuck with me. I never got around to reading the sequels because I think there were 2 more that followed this, right?
Yeah, there's Dark Knight Strikes Again. I read that when it came out. Like I read all 3. I read that whole series when it came out, and it's you're not missing anything. And there's a third book, a third series which I have not read, called Dark Knight 3 Master Race, which I pretty much avoided altogether because I feel like Frank Miller like he's gone off the I feel like Frank Miller went off the a long time ago. So I feel like, and honestly, I think this, along with Year One, are the only 2 good Batman stories he's ever written.
Well, so anyway, so long and short of it, this is my first time coming to the animated version. Now, what I remember of the comic leads me to feel like this was a pretty faithful adaptation. I know they changed some cosmetic things. They probably changed a few things for pacing. But for the most part, tracks very closely with what I remember of the story. And I think it was very well put together. Like, I've not seen the recut version that tries to do it as one movie, and I don't know how that'll work. But as 2 movies, I think that they split them up well. They did the divide almost exactly where I predicted that they would, with the Joker coming out of his catatonia. And I kind of agree with what Dave said, that the second one has more fun stuff in it. But I do think that the first one is an excellent setup for the second one. And it is a pretty darn solid film in its own right. Whatever issues I have with some of these story elements, I would say overall these 2 as a pair are one of the strongest Batman movies out there. And I enjoyed them. I'm glad I finally got to see it.
All right, very good. Thank you very much, Jake. Tammy, first impressions. Is this your first time watching Batman The Dark Knight Returns?
Yeah, yes, it was. I'm not a big anime or cartoon or whatever fan you want to say, whichever way you want to say it. I guess if it's Oriental, that it's anime, I guess. Is that how it goes?
I mean, anime is Japan. It's from Japan.
Yeah.
And this is an American production.
Okay, so anime is Japan, and so this is still considered cartoon then.
Or Western animation.
Yeah, there's different personally, I would say cartoon is more something aimed at kids, but that depends.
Or something more humorous, or something not very serious.
This is not for kids.
Yeah.
Well, no, it's not for kids. This is, I guess I don't watch much in this type of stuff. Okay, I mean, most of the animation stuff that I watch isn't serious. Because I like the, Secret Life of Pets and, How to Train Your Dragon and things like that. Those aren't like totally like serious, But it kept my interest. I mean, it kept my interest more than I thought it was going to actually. Probably because I actually do like the Batman movies, and I like Batman. I even remember as a kid watching the reruns of the Batman show, and
With Adam West.
Yeah. Yep. And I'd watch it with my great grandpa when they would do the fight. My great grandpa would sit there going, "Pow, pow," making the noises. So it did keep my interest a lot more than I really thought it was going to. So yeah, it wasn't that bad. I mean, is it something that I want to sit here and watch constantly? Probably not, but I didn't mind it. We watched some other ones that were in the set you guys have been talking about, and I didn't mind those either. So it's just, like I said, I'm not a big fan. It was fun. It kept my interest. It was, it was fine. It was enjoyable. I mean, if I didn't like it at all, I tell you I didn't like it at all. So, I mean, it helped that I liked the subject matter, because of, even though it was animation, I did like the subject matter because I do like the Batman franchise. So right. I have the Dark Knight movies. So the actual movies.
You mean like the live action movies? Yeah.
Okay, if that's how you want to call it. Yeah, the movies. Not the animation.
Right.
So, but yeah, and of course, like what you guys are talking about that one lie, do exactly what I say, or you're fired. I kept laughing after it was said like twice. It was just like, okay, this seems to be a thing. So, I did like David said about the change up with having the female Robin. I thought that was kind of neat, different, fun. It added a little bit of a difference to it. So, okay.
All right, great. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Tammy. For me, this so no, this is not my first time. This is not my first time watching it. And the comic. I mean, so I mentioned this on past times on past episodes where we've discussed Batman movies. I'm a lifelong obsessed Batman fan. I've been collecting. I've been collecting comic books for 30 years now. For over 30 years now. Actually, no, 30 years now. And the first comic book I ever got was Batman. So Batman's always been my favorite comic book, my favorite superhero. I got t-shirts, toys, comics, t-shirts, toys, video games, the movies, you name it. I probably have it. I probably have it, but no, I've seen this a few times. This animated movie a few times actually. Prior to this, my first taste of The Dark Knight Returns was actually a segment from an episode of Batman the Animated Series from its final season, where there was an episode called The Legends of the Dark Knight where a group of kids are telling stories about Batman. and one of them is actually was a condensed adaptation of this story. And that's what kind of what first piqued my interest in reading, because I hadn't read I had read the Dark Knight Returns. I was 11 years old when that episode aired, and I hadn't read the Dark Knight Returns, but I had heard of it. But that segment got me that episode got me to read the comic book just like a few weeks after I saw it. So I read the comic book I read the comic book when I was 11 years old. And I was just blown away. I had read The Killing Joke way too young. My uncle gave it because my uncle gave that story to me when I was 6. He didn't know any better. He just knew I was obsessed with Batman.
For kids.
Yeah. But yeah, I was just blown away at the scope of the storytelling. Like, it was a very hard, for me, for 11-year-old me, that Dark Knight Returns was a very, it wasn't, definitely was not for kids. Very hardcore. The violence was very, hardcore. There was some foul language. And also you kind of find that it's kind of it kind of finds itself questioning. This is before I read Watchmen, but kind of questioning superheroes and their place in the world.
That's a good point. When did Watchmen come out?
That was also both of them were both Dark Knight Returns and Watchmen were both 1986.
Oh wow, okay.
although because you said that you would say Killing, it's because you brought up Killing Joke earlier, Jake.
That was 88, right?
Yeah, 88. But for me, I would say I think Alan Moore is an overall better writer than Frank Miller. But I would say, between Dark Knight Returns and Killing Joke, I'm going to go with Dark Knight Returns, because that was clearly a passion project for Frank Miller, whereas Alan Moore will admit that it was that he just did that as a favor to Brian Boland.
Well, and also, I think one of the differences between the two is that the Dark Knight Returns is stuffed with different ideas. It's a big idea, a big concept. The main one, I guess, being the role of what is the role of the vigilante in society.
Right.
Whereas The Killing Joke was a pretty simple story. It was basically the concept the Joker wanted to prove that it just took one bad day to turn someone into him, which was the basic gist of the Two-Face story in The Dark Knight. But, that's it's a much simpler, much more focused thing that could be told very quickly. This one covered a little more ground, so I could see that.
Yeah. And anyway, so when I found that they were going to turn Dark Knight Returns into a feature-length animated film, I was ready. I was like, oh yes, bring it on. Interestingly, so I should mention, going back to that episode of Batman the Animated Series where they did the condensed adaptation of Dark Knight Returns. In that episode, Batman was voiced by Michael Ironside. And this movie you've got Peter Weller, so you've got two actors who've worked with who are best known for starring in Paul Verhoeven movies, playing Batman. I think Peter Weller was. Although I prefer Ironside as. Oh, hold on, sorry about that. Spam call. Spam call. But I don't know where's that. So yeah, I think Peter Weller was a solid Batman. And then also actually interesting because since Robin being a girl has been brought up. That was apparently, according to I think Frank Miller mentioning that Stephen King had suggested to him when he was writing the story. Stephen King had suggested making Robin a girl, had suggested making Robin a girl.
Right.
But anyway, so as an animated film, I think so. I saw the anime. So I watched this when it came out, both parts. And I was really impressed. And yeah, there's some little different. I mean, there's some tweaks and some they made some changes. Some of it because there's aspects of the comic book that are outdated, whether just culturally or or socially but overall I think it's a very faithful adaptation that really nails the look and the spirit of the comic down. Music overall I think it's Mask of the Phantasm is still my favorite animated Batman movie, as well as my favorite Batman movie overall, but I would definitely put Dark Knight Returns right up there among the best animated movies. I'd probably put it maybe second. It's I think I would put it second or third to Mask of the Phantasm. But yeah, the voice Peter Weller as Batman was great. Ariel Winter is also great. Is a very good Robin. I think even though this isn't the animated series cast, the voice overall, I think the voice acting was very solid in this.
Well, one thing that's really cool, especially because Oliver Queen does come into play later on,
yes,
is that Michael Emerson, who played Caden James on Arrow, is the voice of Joker here. Mm-hmm. And once I made that connection, I could see it, because that's there he was playing such a calm, controlled individual. And here, of course, he's playing the Joker, and he's playing a more restrained. But yeah. I like that. I was like, yeah, I could buy him as a menacing individual.
He was a good Joker, and I'll admit, after seeing this, I probably will have to come back and read the comic version of it in the future. I know so far nothing has topped my favorite. Even though the adaptation was not as good as it could be, I still enjoyed it, which was Long Halloween. Still my favorite Batman story.
Good one.
One that I felt like they were trying to edge towards in the new Batman movies with Twilight guy and
Pattinson.
Which I actually think that with the route that they're going with that, Long Halloween would be a great story for them to cover, but it looks like they're not doing that. So
even the Dark Knight is loosely, it was inspired. You can tell it was inspired by the Long Halloween.
Yes, which to me is still, nothing tops that one as far as the Batman stories I have read, and but I'll still keep reading on occasion, and you never know. You never know.
Yeah. No. For me, Long Halloween is my favorite Batman. Probably my overall favorite Batman story. But the animation for the movie was bothered me. It reminded me too much of Archer.
I felt like they were trying to imitate.
It was a lot more fluid than Archer.
I felt like they were trying to imitate the art style of the comics too much and made it a lot rougher looking than it probably should be.
Yeah, whereas this one kind of, it's kind of inspired by Frank Miller, but it doesn't have. It's not exactly. They're not trying to emulate Frank Miller.
It's still a distinct and unique look among the Batman movies. You're not likely to mistake this for other Batman movies visually.
Not at all. And all right, so anyways, so overall, so this is definitely one of my definitely one of my favorite animated movies. I think this is definitely a very, very good adaptation, and the first two, the first part obviously is an adaptation of the first two issues, and the second part follows the last two issues of the story. Between the two, I think they're. I don't know. I can't say which one I like more. Which one I like more. I think they both do what they both complement each other perfectly. So we'll start with the beginning of the movie, with part one. So it's been 10 years. So it's been 10 years since Bruce Wayne retired as Batman, following the death of Jason Todd, the second Robin. When the movie starts, we find that Bruce is is competing car racing, and crashes his car, but survives. And we're introduced to this current Gotham through a series of news reports, and we find out that Batman's retired, Commissioner Gordon is retiring, and Gotham is being terrorized by a gang called the Mutants, who are a bunch of skinheads wearing these Cyclops style goggles, and Bruce.
You have to be wary of any cult that seems to have an affinity for Cyclops. You got to.
And so we find out that Bruce. So we see that Bruce is still maintained a friendship with Gordon, who has long since figured out that Bruce and Batman are the same person.
That was one thing I always found was pretty interesting, was that they don't even really address it as to when or how that happened. It's just clear that they're old friends and colleagues, and it's just something Gordon knows. And I thought that was kind of a fun approach that they went with.
I feel like Gordon would have had to have found out a long time ago that Bruce Wayne was Batman.
Right.
And he's completely. Yeah, I like that he's completely cool. That he's completely cool with it. But however, he's had a falling out with Dick Grayson, the first Robin, while the Joker is in a catatonic state in Arkham Asylum, while Harvey Dent has gotten reconstructive surgery to restore his old self. And be released into society.
And I believe they said Bruce pretty much bankrolled the surgery, right?
He did.
Yeah.
Which is nice. I mean, but he's always had that connection with them, so it
right.
And they have that big deal, like he's gone through all the therapy. He's ready for this. I guess not. But
okay, so I got to take a moment here, Brandon. I want to ask your professional opinion about this doctor, who
Wolper. Yep.
Wolper.
He's entirely too trusting.
Yeah.
That's what I would say is he knows what this dude is capable of and what he's been about. But I feel like he hasn't really been truly exposed to it. I think he probably took on the case after the Joker went catatonic.
Yeah.
So I think that a lot of this is too forgiving of something that probably shouldn't have happened. And probably wouldn't have. Actually, no, I know it wouldn't have happened, but I think this is a very weird political spectrum that it skirts. There are times where it's making fun of liberal ideology, but at other times it's making fun of conservative ideology. So it's kind of a weird thing, but a lot of that whole bleeding heart thing, like, oh, well, yeah, you've murdered like hundreds of thousands of people, but I can trust you.
Right.
It's like, no, there are limits.
Well, actually, and you mentioned this isn't really addressed until Superman enters the story later on, but another reason why Batman hung up the cowl in the first place was that there was a big outcry against these people who are outside the law. Yeah, superheroes. But, essentially, they were rebranded as vigilantes. And, Superman ticks them off. And, he said that Diana went home. So she went back to Themyscira. Mm-hmm. Hal left the planet. The Green Lantern, I guess, to do his space work that he's supposed to be doing anyway. And then they mention Oliver wouldn't go quietly into the night, and when Oliver Queen shows up, he's missing an arm.
Yep.
So you know that, and he mentions having done jail time. So there definitely was a backlash again. And the president, who's never named but is obviously Reagan.
Yeah, I was going to say that's the point where it's making fun of the other side of it,
right?
Yeah,
well, it's pretty clear that he seems to be the mouthpiece for this entire faction, and yes, he has Superman working for him under the table, but you know,
because it's because you've got because on one side you have this tepid society that's like, well, if we just let the criminals punch us harder, they'll finally give up and we'll be okay. And then you've got this incompetent Ronald Reagan figure.
It's Reagan. Oh, they don't even hide it. It's Reagan.
Yeah, it's just it's a very weird. I don't even know what politics it's nailing down.
Right. I feel like Frank, after 9/11, Frank Miller's politics became a lot more defined, for better or worse.
I think, I was going to say at this point in time, he might have been more just the provocateur trying to make everyone uncomfortable.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and he does make some decent points on both sides. I mean, that doctor really is, from my non-professional opinion, I agree. He's too trusting. And yes, Harvey Dent, though, was a very real reason to believe that maybe something could happen. I mean, again, Bruce bankrolled his surgery with the same belief, but it takes a special kind of something to give the same olive branch to the Joker. You know? I don't know.
So as soon as Harvey Dent is free, he disappears. But one night, after meeting with Gordon over for drinks, Bruce goes through Crime Alley where his parents were murdered, and is accosted by members of the mutant gang, which kind of triggers him to reopen the Batcave and don the cape and cowl again. So he goes around Gotham, stopping crimes, and taking on members of the mutant gang. And among the citizens of Gotham that he rescues is a teenage girl named Carrie Kelly, who comes from she's a high school student. She's a student, but she's neglected by her parents. But after being rescued by Batman, she's inspired to don the costume of Robin and seek out Batman. So Batman ends up stopping Harvey Dent, but in a very thrilling sequence. But Gotham is divided. His return is polarizing among Gothamites, with Dr. Wolper being his biggest critic.
Yeah, well, he obviously didn't have much to himself.
Whoever's running the staging area.
Yeah. Well, actually, when stopping Two-Face, so Two-Face sets up threatens to blow up a building unless he's paid a ransom. So Batman Batman ends up taking out
$1 million.
Yep. So Batman ends up taking out the bombs that Dent had set up, and stops Harvey Dent himself. But finds out that Dent was trying to kill himself.
Man, we're moving along pretty quick here.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, Justin.
Hey.
So
been here for a while.
Yes, you came in just in time. So I guess we get your first impressions. Was this your first time watching The Dark Knight Returns?
So it could be a long story, but I'll keep it succinct. Back when I first started watching horror movies and being, I guess, the collector I am now, I started watching these DC animated movies. And this one was the only one up to that point that I had been actually like anticipating, because it was kind of the new one's out sort of thing before. But with this one, I was like, okay, when does it come out? When does it come out? And it released in the 2 parts. And so I saw part 1 a few months before part 2 came out, and it was nuts. Like, I thought it was great. Like, it blew me away. I had read the comic, but I didn't know the comic very intimately. And as an adaptation, I thought this was very, very well done. Because there's a lot of things that they talk about this in the commentary. There's a lot of things that they couldn't directly translate,
Right,
between mediums. And I think this is probably the best possible version of the story we could have seen filmed. So I have a really high opinion of this, and I still think it's probably the best of the DC animated like home video release movies they've done. It's definitely better edited together into the 2 parts, though.
Absolutely agree. Since Dustin, I think we had you set up for the schedule to host this episode.
We did.
I think we did, didn't we?
Yeah, because it was originally both you and Forrest had suggested, I believe, but it was yours that came up.
Well, I am sorry, guys.
Are we gonna do the second part? Do the second half?
I can try. I mean, I've seen this movie quite a few times. I just don't have a perfect memory of it. Like, I do remember the highlights, though. Like, I want to talk about like our first really character building moments. Like when Bruce is just walking around Crime Alley and the 2 guys like try to jump him.
Yep.
Like, that already sets the stage for like where he is. It's like he just wants an excuse to like wail on them. And I don't know, I thought that was like a really great moment. You can't do it if they're into it. And it's this Batman has a really good characterization. He's actually kind of scary for the first time. I'd never seen like a genuinely intimidating Batman before. I mean, I had seen the animated series like mini episode where they did a story in this style.
Yes.
But he hadn't really been fleshed out to me before. And so that's there are just 2 build-up scenes that I want to talk about. And when he's the big moment where he decides to become Batman again, he's clicking through the TV, and it's just like a montage of just like triggering. It's just like triggering imagery like over and over again, with that like opera score in the background, like cycling louder and louder. And I think my favorite like part of that is like he clicks through the Weather Channel, storm coming in like the wrath of God, and it's like, yeah, that sounds like what's coming from this music. Holy shit!
Yeah.
And then the "I'm Batman Again" montage, like right after that, is just wow. Again, like I said, like this is a intimidating Batman. And I know he's not killing those guys, but it really looks like he's killing those guys. and it really sold like the tone of what this movie was going to be, and I think that's why I enjoyed it so much. Because I mean, we had like more serious Batmans with the Nolan series, but we hadn't had it quite like this. And Frank Miller is, from everything I understand, he's a pretty reactionary dude. And so this has like a real sense of like punishment to it in the way Batman handles like the criminal element. So they make the comments like, this Batman's a fascist, and it's like, I'm not equipped to fully go into the weeds on that, but I can see people making the argument. So I'll just leave it at that. But we get so much good stuff. And so we were talking about the first of our villain encounters, because we have a couple of them in here. So the main villain for the first half of this is the mutant leader and like the big mutant gang.
Right.
Who seems to be responsible for almost all crime in Gotham at this point in time.
And it's set during the Ronald Reagan period. That's one thing we should notice.
Yeah, it's set during the mid-'80s, and like Reagan himself like is a character. Like that is Reagan. Somebody was I was hearing somebody mention, hey, he looks like Reagan. It's like, no, that is Reagan. Like, did they call him Reagan?
No, they don't say him by name, but it's obviously, the face, the voice.
Yeah, and it is a period.
Also all the Cold War references.
Right. The fact
I even said that to David last night. I said, "Hey, that's Reagan."
I did find it interesting. He shows up in the like hazmat suit in the bunker.
Right.
It looks like things turned out somewhat good. Like, oh,
Looks like those Russians are awfully sore losers.
Yeah. But yeah,
so calm about this. Old fucking.
But we have that interesting thing at the end where or in the second half, the major plot development in the second half where the U.S. and Russia are dickering over Corto Maltese, which apparently I read that Frank Miller in this series, that was the origin of Corto Maltese. Which, considering that it's become a pretty big part of DC stories since then, so that's kind of cool.
Yeah, they use it when they need like a foreign country.
Yeah, and they actually, I remember it being for the first time I remember hearing about Corto Maltese was in the first Tim Burton movie, which again, when we're first introduced to Vicky Vale, she tells Robert Wool
Right.
about the piece that she did for Time magazine.
Right. Okay, I remember that now. Yeah. I remember it factored heavily into the plot in Arrow, and also, obviously the Suicide Squad. So it's kind of fun to see where it came from.
It seems to be either like Bosnian or South American or like the Philippines.
Latin American. Yeah, it is Latin American.
I think I'm thinking of Bosnia because that's their other fake country they like to use.
I would say Valverde is one that comes up in a lot of 80s action films.
Yeah. Well, DC has a handful of fictional ones. Like, what's the one where Ra's al Ghul is headquartered? Barbat, whatever. I'm drawing a blank. Whatever. But
anyway, so we get our first. So they very carefully pick which villains that they reference in this. Like they all tie into Batman in a deeper sense. Like with Two-Face, it's about like identity. Like you can't stop being what you are.
Right.
Is to make that point. So they have Two-Face. Two-Face gets after many years of therapy, Two-Face gets reconstructive surgery so that he looks normal, but inside, like he hasn't changed or healed at all, and he just sees both sides as awful.
when they say both sides match, he agrees, but he's seeing something different than they're seeing.
Right, because he sees himself as being fully deformed. Whereas Batman sees him as like he sees his reconstruct his fully normal looking appearance.
Right.
Like he looks normal, but in his mind, he still sees himself as scarred over.
Yeah.
I think there's it's been many years since I've read the comic, but I think I remember a line from that scene when Batman does confront him. It's like, in the moonlight, I see his soul revealed, and it just shows like the Two-Face like burns over his whole face.
Yeah,
and they do that in this, where they show it for him look like that for a few frames.
Right. They like show him. I think he like looks down at some shards of broken glass or something, and you see what he sees. Like
it's in like a flash of lightning.
Yeah.
And it only lasts for the flash of lightning, which is a pretty cool artistic touch, I thought.
Right. Yeah.
But that whole thing kicks off like a standard Two-Face plot. Like he disappears, he starts wrapping it. He's got his head wrapped in bandages, so people think that he's like re-scarred himself. And he does kind of like a classic, Two-Face plot. It's like, it's on Tuesday. Two towers are going to be blown up unless I get $22 million.
Right.
2 bombs. He wants $22 million. He gives them what? It's 22 minutes, right? To come up with the money. Yeah.
And we get a really good action sequence where Batman takes him out, and there's something that's kind of not noticed a lot, but that I really appreciated. During this fight with the Two-Face goons, Batman has used some of like his old foes' weapons. Like they've been incorporated into his gear. Like he has Scarecrow fear gas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I liked how that was used in his interrogation. I was like, that's brutal, but I like how he basically, I'm older, so I'm going to use some extra stuff to go. And I think he also learns even more about, he learns more to apply all those extra techniques, especially when he decides to go one-on-one with the leader of the crazy dudes at the beginning. And then when he goes back on one-on-one, he realizes how to adapt and employ.
Right.
I appreciated the idea that some of the villains' gear, it's like, that was a pretty good idea. If I modify that a little bit, I could use that.
Right. And now, of course, that has always been one of the things that people say about Batman. He's supposed to be like world's greatest detective and all that. But, he is a sharp dude, and he is a tactician. And actually, when he went in to fight against Superman, I was very surprised that he did not have any kryptonite gear until Ollie came into that picture. We'll get to that, I guess, when we get to that. But the idea being that he knew the weaknesses. I've seen multiple depictions where he knew and had files on the people in his allies.
Yep.
So he definitely looks at all the angles, and both that second fight with the mutant leader and the second fight, or the full-on fight with Superman, you definitely see him using his tactical skills very strongly. Like, he didn't have to do as much with Two-Face because as Dustin, I think you said, Two-Face pretty much went back to his old tricks. He wasn't really doing anything new or different. And so Batman didn't really have to adjust all that much. But, when he had to go up against something different, it's cool how this one did show him adjusting and thinking outside the box.
Yeah. But handed to him in that first fight with him.
Yeah, pretty much.
I'm old
too.
Actually, if Carrie hadn't come looking for him, followed along, he might not have survived that encounter.
That's true, yeah. So, like the the other thing I just wanted to comment on with the Two-Face scenario is that it's kind of it's a good twist that Two-Face isn't actually interested in the money. Like, he's just, I'm doing one of my classic schemes, but I'm going to die this time. Like, he rigs the bombs to explode anyway, like, even if he does get paid.
Yeah.
Because it's about just, again, like, you can't stop being what you are, and he wants to stop. So, on the commentary, they mentioned that in the original story, Joker had the bombs tampered with, and that's why they were going instead of being duds like the henchmen thought they were. But they figured that would be something that would be better to change to kind of add that extra layer to Two-Face's plan. So that was something I thought was worth noting that I learned from the commentary. But I mean, since we've got a lot of content to cover, I think we can jump ahead to that first battle with the mutant leader, where
the mutants are having a meeting in a junkyard, but their meeting is disrupted by Batman's new Batmobile, which is actually a tank.
It's a pretty wild tank. Like, wow.
Like a full-on tank, not like, the one in the Nolan movie and the one in the more recent movie have some like tank-like feel to them.
Right,
this is like a full-on
tank. Yep.
It's like a tank. Those are like car tanks.
Right.
Well, I mean, that's the tactic, though, that he knew at that point that trying to take them out one by one was pointless. He had to take out the leader because that is the only way that he could stop it, because there's too many of them. The guy had an army.
Yeah, he had to break the leader and have the gang see the leader broken, so that they would basically dissipate if that happened. Because it's like, why are we following you?
Right. Well, or what ended up happening, where they basically broke into splinter cells, and something about that leader had caught their attention, and they were very loyal to him as long as he was on top. Yeah.
It's somewhat implied that a lot of the gang members were looking for just some sort of purpose.
Right.
And, the leader is, let's take over the city. Like, that was what they were into for a while. But then when some of them saw, what Batman was doing, they were inspired like Batman to be like Batman and formed their own group, that Sons of the Batman thing.
Right.
So it was just, I think it was just, well, you could call it like a commentary on like the youth culture as people understood it back then. When the story was originally written, it's like these kids are just looking for something to do or something to believe in. And I think that's I think that's some of the underlying intent of that story arc. I don't know. You could look at Frank Miller and he might say I was totally wrong, but I feel like that was deliberate. But anyway, so Batman just comes in like blasting rubber bullets at the gang members until he has to fight the leader like head on. And Batman basically just tries to fight him like he used to fight in like the younger days.
This is where age kicks in for him.
Exactly, he's too outmatched.
Right.
And Robin pretty much bails him out, so he does throw that like glue trap onto the dude's face.
Yeah, Batman should have known better than to take on the huge beefy dude with the huge metal nips at his age, And Alfred tells him as much. Like this, you don't get to see or hear a huge amount from Alfred in this movie, but I did like how his snark was there. Like he's older and he's very sad that Bruce has gotten back in the saddle. Like he knows this won't last like before, but he still has a little bit of that snark, and that was fun to hear.
Well, to be fair, in the comic version, Alfred's been dead for a while, so Alfred kind of shouldn't be here.
Oh, I'd
But
forgotten about that.
They do give him some good lines, though.
I'd forgotten about that part. They were, like I say, it's been 5 or 6 years since I read the comics, so I don't remember all the changes. But I think, yeah, you're right about that. But yeah, I think he fit in nicely. It was kind of sad the way they sent him off in this version, but it was kind of cool that they gave him that last round. Now that you mention that.
Yeah, and again, like his one-liners too. Like he picks up the phone, like Wayne Infirmary.
Right.
Or if it's suicide you're after, I have an old family recipe. It's slow and painful. You'd like it.
Right.
Like the little that Alfred does in this is very memorable. Which even though it maybe doesn't quite make sense because Alfred would be much, much older than he looks like he is in this movie. Like if we are realistic about it.
I think they do state that he's in his 70s, right? Like when they do the obit, like I think they said he was like 78 or something. Am I remember that right?
Okay, I guess that would track better because
that would make him 23 years older than Bruce, which
15 years older than Bruce.
Is my math that far off?
Well, he would have been an adult when Bruce was born, so he would have been probably at least his 40s when Bruce was born, and Bruce is at least 50 in this.
Well, he's 55 in this. So again, if if Alfred was 78, then yeah, that'd be 23 years.
I do not know why I didn't realize this took place in 1986. That's I kept thinking because they keep them young almost eternally, that they basically like this was like a far future type thing.
They do hit you very, very hard over the head that this is the mid-80s. Like
with the and everything.
To me, like with the mutants with the weird high-tech visors.
There was something
super fashionable at the time.
There was something that Commissioner Gordon was talking about something about not telling certain people about Pearl Harbor and whatnot while he was talking to the new lady that was going to be taken in charge of him, and he was like, at first he was like upset that nobody else knew besides certain people, but then a lot of people were saved because of that, and that I think that's what he was trying to relay across.
So your timeline.
It's raising a moral question about like how to take action.
The eternal question of the greater good, like what can be sacrificed for the greater good.
And you see, I think they missed a good opportunity while they aged him up, because if they put him into his 60s, they could have had him basically be Batman as if he aged up from when he first appeared in 1939.
I think they were kind of trying to do something in that sort of vein. But yeah, you're probably
55,
right.
He would have been born in 31, so I sincerely doubt he was fighting crime at the age of like 8.
No, probably not. But well, actually, wait a minute. Actually, there is a touchstone. There's a specific touchstone that helps us to figure out because they in the movie they went to see was The Mark of Zorro, which was, I think, a 1940 release. Was that it? 1940, I think. So it would have been sometime after that at the very least. And anyway, yeah, 1940. But what I was going to say, like, if we're doing the math, if this was 86 and Gordon is 70 here, then that would have made him 25 during the attack on Pearl Harbor, which tracks with him being a GI there. So that kind of works. But I do admit Alfred probably could have been a little bit older. He could have been 10 years older and still been younger than the Alfred in the Burton films. But anyway.
It's kind of sad about what happened to Alfred at the end of the series, but I guess it makes sense. Burn it all down.
Yeah.
So,
so we had the confrontation with the mutant leader, which
leaves Batman badly injured.
Very much so, yes. And him, I guess you could say, hiring Carrie to be the new Robin, or enlisting her, more likely, because he keeps calling her Soldier, which is an interesting change as well, I think. I wonder, I'm sure y'all saw this too. Like, with Dick Grayson and to a degree with Jason, and then if this had continued with the other timeline, with Timmy, all of them, Bruce had a strong sort of parental sort of father figure. And then, of course, with Damien, he literally is his father. But with her, he called her Soldier. He kept talking about firing her.
Yeah, and more like an employee or a recruit.
Yes.
Than
I'm thinking this may have been his subtle sort of mental block to allow him to not conflate her with Jason, and to have a sidekick, but not have because he would have had some hang-ups otherwise. Yeah.
Because he even says, Jason was a good soldier who honored me, like, earlier in the movie. So that's how he thinks of, like, these proteges now.
Right. Well, I'm saying, like, it's probably the way he's had to adjust his thinking to handle the whole thing. Yeah.
Right. I agree with you.
Which, of course, Death in the Family took place in '88, which...
Right.
2 years after the '86 event there, so he died earlier.
Well, like we were saying before, that was probably this may have kind of helped prompt them to go that route, to see, if people really wanted to see that happen.
I always felt bad for Jason Todd originally, because how can you be so badly disliked that people just like, yeah, kill him off? Like, the audience says kill him off.
Well, from what I understand, they didn't get as many votes as they thought they were, and it was very close. Like, I think it was like less than 100 votes from what I remember. I read about that a very, very long time ago, though, so I could definitely be wrong.
Right.
Well, I remember when it happened.
Now, as far as presaging things that happen later in the comics, Bruce and Dick have had kind of a testy relationship over the years. Like, as Nightwing, Dick is a lot more violent than he was ever allowed to be as Robin. He's still a decent guy, but he's a lot more violent. And of course, as the Red Hood, Jason Todd is very violent.
Just slightly more violent than he would have been as Robin. Just slightly.
Well, Jason Todd died, so I think he's allowed to, be unstable.
Well, sort of like having a 1985 bottle of wine in 1982. We get to it eventually.
Yeah.
But I do think, doesn't the mutant leader end up getting basically arrested at that point, though, regardless?
He gets arrested after that first fight with Batman.
Yeah.
Yeah, Batman doesn't win, but he does incapacitate him so that he can be brought into custody. And then that starts the whole standoff with the mutant is release our leader. Mutant gang is release our leader. And the city officials are kind of like, what do we do? I don't know. We get like a long montage of that. There's a lot of great stuff with the TV in this movie where we get like a montage. I think this is where we get that montage of them passing the buck. The governor is like it's a state issue, and then the governor is like it's a city issue, and the mayor is like, well, I don't know, guys.
And then they kind of passes it off to the deputy mayor, and then they try to pass it off to the police, and the police are like, well, this is where Gordon's kind of like, well, this is where I'm at, and then the new one's like, well, I'll let you know when I come in.
I wonder if this is the kind of thing that Todd McFarlane was looking at when he decided to go for, because he used a lot of that sort of storytelling with the back and forth of TV and officials when he was doing his storytelling.
I mean, he did. He did tap Frank Miller to write the first Batman Spawn crossover back in the '90s.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyway, so they return. So Batman returns to the Batcave with the new Robin, and devises a way devises a plan to bring the leader out for a rematch. And has Robin disguised as a mutant and lures the mutant leader into a sewer outlet at the West River.
Yeah, he has her go around telling everyone basically where to meet, and sending out the invite, and yeah, and he's like, do exactly what I tell you. Tomorrow we'll start your training as Robin, but tonight, do this exactly as I tell you, or you're fired.
So Batman is triumphant over the mutant leader in this mud fight. Since the mud slows him down, and breaks his leg, and thereby causing the mutants to disband into smaller gangs. One of which is the Sons of Batman, who have swapped out their visors for Batman symbols over their eyes.
Yeah, and this is after the grand plan to dethrone the mutant leader. Like the mayor tries to negotiate with him, and he just kills the mayor while he's in custody.
Bites his throat out.
Yeah, and then Batman and Gordon, along with Kelly goes around basically in a mutant disguise and spreads the rumor that there's going to be some big thing with the leader at the Pipe, which is basically just this mud hole they're going to fight in. But we don't know that yet. And so this gets the whole mutant gang to what will become the arena for that battle. And then Gordon quietly releases the mutant leader into I'm not exactly sure the exact pathway he takes, but he's basically shown, here's a pipe you can crawl out of to escape, and it opens up right into where Batman's going to fight him. And that's one of the big highlight. That's the big highlight of the first part of this. It's like the climax of that movie, where we get Batman being a more careful and calculating fighter instead of just, I can't overpower this guy, but I can outsmart him. And so we see Batman fighting very technically. It's like, okay, I know how to, injure you here so that you can't use this arm, or I know how to make a cut above your eyes so that, you're half blinded with your own blood. And we get that really cool line. It's like, this isn't a mud hole, it's an operating table, and I'm the surgeon. It's like, damn.
Yep.
I used to like showing this to people who hadn't seen it or read the comic, and people's jaws dropped so far, at that line when he breaks the mutant leader's arm in that hold. Wow.
Right.
And then after that, we get the Sons of Batman moment, But Batman being on the TV all the time, all of a sudden, after all these years,
Here's the Joker.
Yeah, has an unintended consequence where this somewhat unassuming guy in the mental ward who's been comatose for decades just suddenly snaps to life, like every time he hears Batman.
Right.
And it's like, you can tell he's the Joker, but you have to kind of look at him a little closer. Like, they did a good job of making him look like, checked out of it.
Right.
But that's the second. That sets up the second half of the film, which is with Batman dealing with all his, I guess, greatest loose ends. Because with Batman back in the picture, like the Joker has come back. Like the way it was explained to me, what happened in this continuity was that one day, Joker was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna rob the bank" or whatever, and Batman just didn't come, and the Joker his mind just went blank, and it was
He went into a catatonic state.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Basically,
Batman.
Basically, the idea, as I saw it, and I was talking about Brandon about this earlier, the Joker likes to be entertained, and nothing entertains him more than Batman. He is obsessed with Batman. So if Batman disappeared,
he has no purpose.
He basically has no meaning left in his life. And the fact that Batman just disappeared, you might be right. You're probably right. He probably tried to draw him out, and Batman just didn't show up, and that probably was the straw that broke him, as it were. But it does play into the question that they ask in this movie, and that they've asked several times since, which is Batman responsible for the appearance of people like the Joker? How much safer would Gotham be without him? The Joker is a good example of that, because
but there's also a finality to it.
Yeah.
As well, which is one thing that I think mirrors the Two-Face fight.
Yeah.
Is that, yes, these villains are back, but they're tired, and they're looking for a last stand. And even the Joker, you could tell that at this point, he wanted one last hurrah, but he didn't really intend to. Well, he did not intend to survive this last one.
Much like the finale. Like a real one.
So he was. So this is actually kind of that pattern, really, that we see is that finality.
Right. There's sort of a fatalism in here, I think, for almost all the characters that you don't usually see.
Yeah, and there's a really interesting thing they do with this version of the Joker is they have it like he's in love with Batman.
Right.
That's taking their dynamic to probably about as far as I think it could go. And it works very well. Like, it's very like eerie.
Yeah, there's one part in particular where the Joker's something like, Batman's like, "Do you know how many people I've murdered by letting you live?" or something like that.
Right.
It's like, "I don't know. I don't keep count." And Batman's like, "I do." And the Joker's like, "Yes, and I love you for it." And I'm just like,
the way that moment is acted too, like you get a lot of emotion from the characters' voices. It's like, I never kept count. I did. I know. It's like, damn. What's going on here?
They did explore it a little bit, the whole love connection in the Lego Batman movie.
That up for laughs, but yeah, they've touched on it, and in the Dark Knight they touched on it. Like, I think the if I'm remembering correctly, I do believe he actually used the Jerry Maguire phrase, "You complete me."
Yep.
And that I don't think was accidental.
Well, one of the things that one of the things I thought was more interesting, if you go back to their dynamic, even in the comics, when he was fighting Azrael Batman for the first time, and Azrael breaks his arm, and then he basically almost has a panic attack, realizing that it's not him, and it just destroys him mentally when he figures out that's not the same Batman that he's been fighting. But I wanted to say also, one of the most annoying aspects of this for me when it comes to the political maneuvering was the new police chief,
Yindel.
And basically, though she claims that she's equally hunting Batman and the Joker, that is a lie.
She's
in her mind, Batman is the most dangerous villain. If the Joker kills a whole bunch of people, it's not as big a deal, because if you capture Batman, those deaths are worth it. Because all of her aggression is on Batman, and the Joker was more of a afterthought. For instance, nobody was inside the studio looking after that. All the security was looking for Batman.
Right.
Yeah.
They didn't care that the Joker was there, and
yeah,
nobody pointed the finger at her. Well, you didn't bother to lift a finger to protect those people. It's like, oh, Batman's responsible for their deaths.
Well, considering that two of Dr. and also considering that two of Dr. Wolper's experiments or his patients went out and I'm surprised Wolper didn't have more accountability after Two-Face after the stunt Two-Face pulled.
Right.
Well, he had accountability after the Joker got.
Yeah.
He did, but he
was already dead.
Was that the toy man that was?
That was Humpty Dumpty. They kind of gave him some toy man style skills.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, but it is named. It is Humpty Dumpty. Like, he is named in the credits and on the commentary as Humpty Dumpty.
That makes sense. He was kind of egg-shaped.
Yep.
Although I did kind of joke because all the mutants were calling people Spud. And I'm like, well, why don't they call this guy Spud?
Yeah, but I think Dr. Wolper is kind of the caricature of, people who, think they know everything and think they understand everything and are also, like, very judgmental. And it's like, oh, I know why Batman's doing this. It's all because of this, blah, blah, blah. And he's so manipulated by the Joker. Like, when the Joker is reactivated, like, he completely fools Wolper so fast.
Right.
I think, I mentioned my friend Andrew on the show sometimes. When I first saw this with Andrew, and we were at that scene where the Joker is, tricking Wolper into getting him onto the TV show. When the Joker just puts his head in his hands and he's like, it's so disheartening. And Andrew's jaw drops and he's just staring at the screen like, you lying motherfucker.
Yeah.
And Andrew had never seen or read this story, right?
No. Like, he was just like, the dude's obviously lying, but Wolper is like, well, I cured this guy, so, he's definitely not dangerous anymore.
Yeah, no, well, he clearly wasn't showing any narcissistic tendencies wanting to be on television or anything like that. Although I will admit, this is nothing like, in Batman, the Tim Burton film, where he throws a fit. Like, can anyone tell me what kind of a world it is we live in when a man dressed as a bat steals all my press? It's like, here he's just more, he played it off as more like poor pitiful me. And Wolper lapped it right up. I just and I really like I feel like when I saw Joker, the movie Joker, I felt that the whole thing with that talk show host was very much modeled on this comic. And now seeing this again, I'm like, yes, they absolutely pulled those scenes from here. I feel like this set that up perfectly. But yeah, of course, this Joker was a little more in control.
Very manipulative. And interesting though that he goes on the David Endocrine show. David Endocrine is he's in the comic he's a caricature of David Letterman,
right?
And he's voiced by Conan O'Brien,
right? And what kind of name is that though? Endocrine. That's an interesting name for a character.
I think that's just Frank Miller. Frank Miller trying to be pervy and be both kind of pervy and edgy. Be both pervy and edgy.
Right.
But while this is all going on, Superman meets with President Reagan to stop Batman.
Which I think he just doesn't. He only gives him a talking to the first time, and he just says he'll give him a talking to. It's not until after they have the Russians do their counterattack, and Reagan is seeing that Batman is becoming more of a hero figure and more of a leader figure there, and more of a threat. It's
when he becomes a political embarrassment to the government. That's like, I think that was one of my favorite parts, is after that blackout takes out most of the country, they say on the news that one city has kept law and order, and it's Gotham. And you got to know that everyone in America was hiding their faces in shame when they heard that.
Gotham's the one who's yeah. But that's the idea, is that basically the president was shamed by it, and so it was like, well, you're not shaming me, take him out. And Superman had to play the good little soldier and go take him out.
Right.
Well, he didn't want to take him out that way. He just wanted to basically surrender yourself and we'll lock you in jail.
Yeah.
Well, first, with the whole Joker thing, I'm going to say, as far as the comics, that was one of the parts I remembered the most. I remembered the talk show appearance. I know they changed a couple things. Like, I think originally the twins killed the doctor.
Yeah, they snapped his neck in the comic.
Yeah. I really liked how they did it here, where he asked the host for permission to take the mug with him. And then he just broke it and sliced the doctor's neck. And I was like, I love that. I was like, that was a good change.
Yeah, I was not expecting that.
I will say
that he asked permission first. It's just
that scene at the amusement park where the Joker just snaps his own neck.
And that was the other part I remembered from the comics. Because basically, the Joker, yes, I feel like he was ready to end it. Because what's up?
Oh, I just wanted to mention one liberty taken between the comic and the movie. Because in the movie, they do show the Joker. Well, actually, it's not Humpty Dumpty. His minion's name is Abner. But who actually prior to the top, whom earlier in the movie gives Joker mind controlling lipstick, along with a pair of nose plugs.
Right.
But actually, so in the comic book, when after Joker escapes from the talk show, he goes to that amusement park and gives poison cotton candy to a Boy Scout troop. And they all eat the cotton, and he kills a whole Boy Scout troop with poison cotton candy. I mean, whereas here they show him giving cotton candy out, but we don't see any effect, if there's any effect of it.
Okay.
Notable. I found that to be an interesting, notable omission. I don't know if it was just that because
they
were less comfortable depicting children getting murdered.
They probably did it so that they could market it to a younger audience. I had read that the reason why Gordon is no longer smoking but doing nicotine gum was specifically so that they could reach a larger audience. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, that final scene definitely I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, the big thing was the Joker wanted Batman to finally take him out.
He wanted him to lose control. That was the thing, and I remembered that. That was
he did lose control, but not enough to satisfy the Joker. But he's like, "No, you're not getting off that easy," and he snaps his own neck, and that was like, oh my gosh.
If I'm remembering correctly, Forrest and Dustin, you guys can probably confirm or disconfirm this. If I recall, it wasn't so much the Joker snapping his own neck as it was like Batman had like injured his spine, and the Joker basically just shifted and broke his, shifted, like severed the spine or something. I can't remember exactly, but it was something. It was similar to this. I just feel like they made it more dramatic for the movie.
Oh, it definitely left quite a impression when I watched it. So I think it did a great job of it.
Right. But yeah, right up until and after that, of course, the commissioner is like hot on his trail, just like and like we said before, like never mind all the dead bodies the Joker left in his wake. We gotta get Batman. He killed Joker. He's a murderer now. Yeah, and it's like.
And actually on his way from the talk show from the David Endicrin show to the amusement park, he tracks down Selina Kyle, the former Catwoman, who is now running an escort service, and uses that lipstick of his to take control of her escorts. Selina Kyle herself, and some representatives who are calling for nuclear strikes on the Soviets.
Right.
And but apparently that causes one of these congressmen to fall to his death, to fall out of a window naked after having a little quality time with one of Selina Kyle's escorts.
Yeah, well, after standing on the ledge and shouting out those demands about and then of course you see Bruce come up. You see a detective come up and talk to her, and then he wanders off, and then the same detective comes up from the other side, and so they did incorporate a little bit of Batman. He's pretty good with the disguises.
I would say he's a master of disguise. That's one aspect from the comic. Like I remember that was a big thing in the comics. That was a big thing in the comics, especially during the 70s.
Yeah.
And they played up and they played up here too.
And they have another scene where he takes the form of this old hag, who kind of is trying. I think that was earlier on, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yes, there was because one of the gangs that the mutants had split it off into where it was a gang of Nazis.
Yeah.
With their leader Bruno wearing swastika pasty, wearing like holy swastika pasty. Oh boy.
It's
that's actually where because Batman gets into a fight with their leader Bruno, which is how Batman first encounters Superman in this story.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's a pretty rough encounter, but but I kind of did like how he came in because it's like these punks are trying to hold up a liquor store. And then his old hag comes in like, yeah, he's the real criminal. He's charging, like trying to act like the guy's overcharging so that she can get close. And then, starts wailing on the punks. That was kind of fun. But of course, the Joker gets his licks in on Batman too. He's in a rough shape when when Carrie comes and picks him up.
Yeah, that whole tunnel of love scene was definitely priceless.
But no, I noticed though that in this whole part where they have their final showdown between the talk show, between killing everybody on that talk show, and then the scene in the amusement park, I noticed that like there's a ton, like there's a lot of casualties.
Yeah.
This is the kind of like where I'm thinking like I find myself questioning how effective Batman really is.
You also have to wonder, they do say that a lot of the cops are seriously injured. But a lot of these scenes, you really have to wonder if Batman doesn't kill from time to time, because some of these people get very injured. Not to mention all the property damage.
Oh yeah. But Batman chases the Joker into the tunnel. While Batman's chasing the Joker in the tunnel of love, Robin has to take on Abner on a roller coaster, and he's about to kill and Abner's about to kill Robin, but he gets caught on a roller coaster chain, and presumably decapitated.
Yeah, that was a pretty clear casualty there.
But Batman and Joker have their final showdown in the tunnel of love. Ironically, with Batman throwing the Joker, knocking the Joker around while the Joker is continually stabbing him. And he blinds Joker with a batarang. But eventually the Joker is killed. And by breaking his own neck, the police arrive, and find the Joker's corpse has been rigged to go up in flames, while Batman swims his way out of the tunnel of love, and him and Robin make off before the police can catch them. And meanwhile, Superman stops a Soviet nuclear missile. But he ends up he's trying to stop this missile, but the missile goes off, and it affects him while creating an electromagnetic pulse across the U.S. and causing nuclear winter. Gotham meanwhile, while this is going on, Gordon's neighborhood goes up in flames. The remaining mutants are escape from prison, so Batman and Robin on horseback rally the Sons of Batman and the mutants to restore order to Gotham, along with Gordon.
I was going to say, first you get that nice little scene where some of the mutants are engaged in battle with ordinary citizens who are also kind of rioting as well. And it's hard to say which of them is really in the right there. Really, none of them are. And then Gordon sees this and just kind of gets pissed off. And he fires his gun to shut them all up. And then I believe there were some Sons of Batman there, or some faction that helped him keep order.
Yeah.
He basically calmed everyone down. And he's like, okay, we have fires to put out. Anyone who's in will let you go, and you can help. Anyone who doesn't want to help, you can just stay tied up. And so he basically calms down a block. But then, yeah, Batman and Carrie, they get the gangs riled up and basically take an army under their control.
Right. Actually, well, they officially break the Sons of Batman. He basically he basically deputizes the Sons of Batman, but tells them that if they're gonna be if they're gonna be carrying on his name, they got to do it his way. They have to do it his way.
Right. And then, like we said earlier, they do it. And then later you see, like, yeah, Gotham's the safest place in America, and the president is humiliated.
Well, and Yindel accepts that she's helpless to stop Batman.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, she finally I guess she finally gets the point of what Gordon had tried to tell her, that like sometimes you gotta put up with something you'd rather not for the greater good, basically.
Yes. So Superman and the army are sent to stop, and the National Guard are sent to stop Batman, and so Batman and Superman agree to meet in Crime Alley for one last fight. So meeting up in Crime Alley, Batman wearing this like mech armor.
Right.
His own version of the Hulk Buster.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Yeah, his Hulk Buster armor.
And
meanwhile, Oliver Queen has appeared, and they had their little conversation about what happened a few years back, and Ollie said, I want a piece of the schoolboy. Let me know what I can do. And so something's going to happen.
And keep in mind, Superman was also weakened because he took most of the full force of the nuke.
Yes.
And he got stuck in the nuclear winter, of course, so he's been not having as much exposure to the sun.
Right. And when Alfred's like, you are nowhere near full strength, he's like, well, neither is he. Yeah, so that's his hope, at least.
Batman and Superman meet in Crime Alley, and just start knocking each other around. All the while, the army, the military are chasing after the Batmobile. While Alfred is setting up to detonating Wayne Manor. Because there's no turning back. There's no turning back at this point. I mean, Batman's at the point of no return. During the fight, Oliver Queen shows up and shoots Superman with a kryptonite arrow, which weakens him. So Batman
he did that to prove a point, though, that he is in fact got a weakness. And remember, we're not always superheroes. They can turn on us at the click of a dime, and you'll be the criminal. Unfortunately, it's kind of a two-way street being a superhero. So that's why he went and did that. But as we know, Batman had an insurance plan.
Right. Yeah, that was and actually you do see while they're fighting, Carrie's in the Batmobile, and suddenly a recording comes on, and it's like, okay, I've got him distracted now, so listen to the real plan. And so, of course, we don't really hear the real plan ourselves. But you get the impression not long after that she goes to Ollie, so he's part of what the recording. But the actual plan we find later on. But yeah, this was again, Bruce had to think around Superman. This is someone that he's known for years. He knows how he thinks. He knows his weakness, of course, is kryptonite, but he also has character weaknesses. Like Superman is too trusting for one,
Right.
And he, again, Ollie calls him the schoolboy. I mean, he really is usually thought of as sort of like a Boy Scout kind of individual.
Yeah. Actually, I feel like as much as I love this, as much as I love the movie and the story, I feel like a lot of the modern negative perceptions of Superman came from this.
Well, probably, yeah. But yeah, the idea though that Bruce knew, just like the Joker knew how to manipulate his doctors and all the other stuff, Bruce knows how to manipulate Clark, and so he managed to outthink him by faking his death, basically. Unfortunately, yeah. Unfortunately, it wasn't such a fake out with Alfred, and I do think that scene was very sad. But again, it's kind of cool that he got a last hurrah. It's just such a sad ending to it. They basically had him leaving the manor as it goes up in flames, and he ends up having a stroke out. Yeah,
I do find it fun. Like even though he's going through the stroke, he's at the very end of it. He just standing there, all dignified, right outside the burning house.
Stiff upper lip and all that.
It's just,
yeah, you saw him grab his arm earlier, and I honestly thought he was having a heart attack. But later on, they say it was a stroke. But yeah.
I could tell definitely looked like a stroke from that time because you could see the one side of his body basically being affected.
Well, he did have the cane, but
So the world finds out that Bruce was Batman, but all his secrets and his assets have disappeared, along with Wayne Manor. So the funeral is attended by a few, including Selina Kyle, Commissioner Gordon, Superman. They all walk, and Selina Kyle tries to confront Superman, blaming him for Bruce's death.
Mm-hmm. A slightly beat up Superman.
But Gordon holds her back. And as they're leaving, there's one individual where one veiled individual there, still there at the grave, who's actually Robin,
right?
And Robin turns to Superman, who winks at her
because you hear one heartbeat, and then like Superman kind of he thinks about it, then he winks at her. So they know he knows, but I think Bruce says later, as long as he stays out of the limelight, he thinks they'll leave him alone.
So we flash forward to some time later. Oliver Queen is leading a group of sons of Batman and mutants in a cave, where we see Bruce has them set up the new Bat Cave, as he plans to train an army.
Interesting thing here, and I don't know if it's what Miller was going for. I don't remember the chronology of the comics or whether they had reached this point or not.
Mm-hmm.
But in a sense, the way this ends, Bruce is almost fulfilling the destiny that Ra's al Ghul had in mind for him.
Right.
Because Raish had tried for years to get him to take over his organization. Now, of course, it looks like
although Raish wanted Batman wanted him to lead him in committing terrorism.
Well, I was going to say they have a very different modus operandi.
Yeah,
but their goals are similar. I mean, Ra's al Ghul is a terrorist, but his goal in the end is to theoretically make the world a better place
by eliminating like 80% of the population.
Exactly. Yeah, he has a very different way of going about it.
No, I totally agree with Ra's al Ghul's way of making the world a better place.
Right. But again, you see what I'm saying? Like, he ends up taking over a shadow army. And it's kind of similar to how it probably would have been if he had taken over the organization. That's, I don't know. I just thought that was kind of an amusing
did they ever come back?
It's interesting. I mean, actually, that's still an interesting observation. I hadn't thought of that before. Especially since Ra's al Ghul is not a character. He's not a character in this movie. And in the sequel stories by Frank Miller, he doesn't appear in either of them.
And especially because Bruce's right hand, other than Robin here, is Oliver Queen, who in Arrow was Green Batman and was basically treated the same way by Ra's al Ghul.
So they did do a sequel to this particular story?
They did two. They've done two sequels so far, but well, the second one. Okay, the second one I read it when it came out. It's terrible. And then they did a third one a few years ago, but I didn't read it because I just feel like Frank Miller has really deteriorated in like creatively. He's really I felt like he's gone creatively bankrupt, and he's just not there. He's just not there anymore. And every Batman story he's written since the 80s has just been really bad.
Well. Well, maybe it's best to sometimes end on top and leave it as is.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to see how bad Frank Miller can get with Batman, I would say read at your own risk. Read All-Star Batman. Read All-Star Batman and Robin.
So much fun.
So I guess we'll ask, how do you feel about thoughts on music, animation? How do we feel about that? I think the score was really. I really like the score. I mean, I thought the score here was really good. Solid animation, and a lot of. I liked a lot of they really took a lot of the callbacks to the comic.
I've seen really good animation and I've seen really bad animation with Batman stuff. I would say the peak of Batman animation is still Mask of the Phantasm.
Definitely.
But I would say that this one falls in the middle. As far as artwork and animation quality, I think it's nowhere near the worst, but it's not the best either. It's just it functions, it does its job. And the fights definitely go over well.
Yeah,
and that's what's needed.
I would agree with that. And the music, incidentally, is by Christopher Drake, who, among other things, did a couple of Kevin Smith movies, Tusk and Yoga Hosers. He's done a lot of the animated Batman. He did Under the Red Hood and Justice League Doom was more
Batman Year One,
but Batman Year One. Some of the other stuff as well from the and as well as some video game stuff. You got Gotham Knight in there, or wait, no, that
Injustice, Batman.
Yeah, Injustice was one. Yeah, that's what I was trying to say. Some Hellboy stuff as well. So he's got some interest, but again, mostly video game stuff. But I feel like the music did a really good job of giving us that Batman flavor that you expect. I think it was well used. And I'll agree, the animation was, I liked how distinctive it was. I did think I've seen better and I've seen worse. I'll agree. This one's probably middle of the road in terms of the overall animation. But I will say, as much as I love the animated series, and that in some of the other movies, the syncing of the vocals to the animation was always a little wonky. I felt like they did a much better job with the vocal syncing on this one than on some of the others I've seen. I don't know if anyone else feel that way or not, but and as we said before, the vocal acting was mostly pretty solid across the board. I think most of the characters nailed their roles really well. We already mentioned Peter Weller and Michael Emerson. You got Ariel Winter as Robin, David Selby as Commissioner Gordon, Wade Williams as Harvey Dent, Mark Valley as Clark Kent, et cetera, et cetera. You got a pretty good cast. So actually, Carlos Alazraqui, D. Bradley Baker, and Paget Brewster are all pretty big vocal actors. They've done a lot of stuff. Maurice LaMarche is in there as well. He's got a couple of fun roles, and Tress McNeil. So you have a couple of the Futurama cast on there.
I was going to say, Animaniacs and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles right there.
Right. Rob Paulson as well. A lot of Tara Strong. So actually, now you got a lot of good vocal actors in here. Yuri Lowenthal.
I mean,
yeah.
Actually, one of my problems with, one of my big problems with modern animated films is that they're heavily reliant on star power.
Yeah.
And this one uses kind of uses some big names in Peter Weller and Ariel Winter, because RoboCop and Modern Family.
Right.
But then they also use a lot of veteran voice talent.
Right.
The only issue I ever have with it is because I got spoiled for how awesome the voice acting cast was for Batman the Animated Series. So everything is second best to that for me.
Right. Yeah, Kevin Conroy is almost the definitive Batman. Mark Hamill might as well be the definitive Joker. You got a few that are
and in a moment of life imitating art, in wake of Kevin Conroy's passing, Hamill said that he would never voice the Joker again. That he wouldn't voice the Joker again now that Conroy's passed.
Right.
Oh,
and that's appropriate. I mean, it really is. He was a little kind of, I guess, a little burnt out on the role anyway. Which really, if you were that good at playing that kind of character, I should hope for your sanity you'd eventually get tired of it. But
ironically, actually, come to think of it, he got more mileage out of playing the Joker than he ever did playing Luke Skywalker.
Well, he's better at
it.
Well, I mean,
it's kind of ironic how he had that second career. I had to step away for a moment, but I just wanted to add a little bit more to the confrontation between Batman and Joker. The ambient music in the background, they said that was meant to be representative of what the Joker always hears in his head, like that, and that's partially why he's crazy. They talked about that on the commentary, and it kind of sells the concept, the way that theme, that Joker theme is just like an unnerving melody. It's not overwhelming. It's just ambiently something is wrong, a feeling of something is wrong.
Right.
And I love that moment when they finally talk to each other. And we mentioned the neck snap. That's the point of that is Batman does almost lose control. Like, he snaps the Joker's neck like 3/4 of the way. And Joker's like final mocking thing is like, you still couldn't do it. Oh, the cops are coming. They'll think you did it. And they'll never know you didn't have the nerve. And then he breaks his own neck, like, to finish himself.
Yeah.
And frame Batman. There's a line in the comics that I don't think they used here. You know, whatever's in him rustles as it leaves. I spare a moment for my fallen foe, and he spits on the corpse.
He does spit on the corpse in the animation as well.
Right.
But I think we covered music and animation pretty well.
Right. There is some use of CG in here, but I thought for the most part it played pretty smoothly. There were a couple parts where I was like, well, that's CG, but you know.
It didn't hit so far as, ugh, that's CG.
Exactly, yeah.
Which is all I can ask for. So, favorites?
Oh boy, favorites. Actually, I'll go. Let's go around. Let's go to around. Dave, favorites.
I would have to say that some of my favorites was when Batman first came out of retirement. Now that Brandon had said that about that, that was a pretty strong coming out of retirement statement. Mm-hmm. You know, but that montage right there, that was kind of cool. I do like the various interactions with him and the new Robin from time to time. I do like the Tunnel of Love scene. I think I love the. I don't know why, but I love the moment where Joker's at the makeup table and he's like, "Did you want to have lipstick applied?" "No, I brought my own." Yeah. Yeah, he's definitely an interesting character. The Tunnel of Love scene was kind of cool. The whole. I do like the smoke scene. Where you see him, you don't really see him in the smoke, and he's just, taking out dude after dude. So that I think that scene was pretty cool to me, seeing that animation wise. Though I do have to agree, Mask of the Phantasm had a pretty good standard, so. But other than that,
is pretty good. But this is awesome as an adaptation.
Yeah.
Other than that, I mean, that's pretty much it for me.
All right. What about you, Brandon? Favorites?
Where the Joker snapped his own neck, and then of course Batman spitting on the body as he leaves. I just thought that was a good answer to that.
All right. What about you, Jake? Favorites?
Well, I guess I'll probably have to go with a couple of moments. There was one that I think Dustin mentioned earlier, where Alfred said something like, "If it's suicide you're looking for, I have an old family recipe." Like, just that. Again, Alfred snark is classic, and he had a couple great one-liners, but I think that was the best one. But then, and when he said Wayne Infirmary too, that was a good one. But then the other part would probably have to be the final confrontation with the Joker, I'd also give a little bit of props to the part where they introduce him on the talk show and he says, I'm going to murder all these people. And the host is like, that's a little more insight than I planned. You know, and the whole thing with the mug, that was great. Asking permission first. But that final scene with Batman where he's like, I never kept count. Batman said I did. And then Joker's like, I know and I love you for it. Just that whole thing, I just love that interchange, and of course the way it finally played out, as Brandon described, was pretty cool too. But just that whole confrontation, I thought was really pretty solid, and again memorable. That was one of the few parts of the comics I really remembered.
And like the way it starts out too, with Batman like throwing the batarang like right into his eye, and Joker's like, "Are you out of your mind?" It's like, you know, it's different this time, Joker.
Right.
And he's like, "Be still, my heart." It's like that's where he realizes this is their last fight, where one of them is going to die, and like he's even like super excited about it later on, like during that moment. It's like, it's here, isn't it? The moment we've both been waiting for. And he's just so excited, you know? So, and I don't think we're giving enough credit to like the voice acting, because he just sounds like so elated.
Right. Well, it's like I said, that guy, he really did do a great job. Michael Emerson really did do a great job, and it is one of the stronger Jokers I've heard. But definitely for the way they portrayed him in the movie, it was a good fit.
All right. What about you, Tammy? Favorites?
Well, I guess I like the same thing that everybody else does. That love tunnel theme. That whole scene and the ending, and you know when Batman almost loses control all the way, but doesn't. You know, and then the Joker finishes cracking his own neck. I thought that I agree with everybody. That's pretty awesome scene. So, I mean, there's a few other ones here or there. I mean, I like when Robin is first introduced, and and she's running and she's doing the flips and jumping from the building to building, and trying to getting her confidence up. That she can do this. I thought that was neat too.
All right. And what about you, Dustin? Favorites?
Well, there are a lot of moments that I just love in this. Like especially like that final confrontation with Joker, the combat demonstration of the mutant leader. Like there is so much. But I think I mean, if objectively, I would pick the final battle with the Joker. But for sake of nobody having named it yet, I'm going to go with the final fight with Superman, where he fakes his death and everything. Because we get some great dialogue during that. I want you to remember the one man who beat you. Like just saying what it feels like he's always wanted to say to Superman.
And pointing out that the mix on the kryptonite arrow could have been a lot stronger, that he wasn't trying to kill him. He just wanted him to kind of feel normal, or what it's like to be normal and mortal for a little bit. Yeah.
All right, and for me, favorites. I mean, I have to agree. There's a lot of moments. A lot of great moments in this. There are a lot of little moments, both in big and little moments. I'd probably say his fight, the fight with Two-Face, the fight with Two-Face, like just the whole sequence, like stopping the bombs and take and confronting Two-Face himself, fighting when he fights the mutant leader in the mud pit, as well as the Joker in the tunnel, the final confrontation with the Joker in the Tunnel of Love. Oh man. I think those are all like a lot of like all the fight scenes here are like even though it's an animated film, the fight scenes here are big. Like they have a lot of implications, and stakes. I'm trying to think any other. Yeah, but I would definitely say Batman taking on Two-Face, Joker, and the Mutant Leader were my favorite moments. So I guess we'll do outro. I guess we'll go to outros.
Okay. I guess we'll start with you, Forrest. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
All right. My name's Forrest Bennett. I'm an independent film producer and actor based in Long Island, New York. Recently acted in a movie called Amityville Turkey Day that should be coming out this fall, as well as a movie from Trauma called. I also appeared in a Trauma movie it's coming soon called Bring on the Damned. You can also find me on Instagram under My Name Is Not Gump, where I do comic book pickups, and I'm also on a show called I'm also on a public access show here in New York called Under the Radar, where we review and discuss newer movies and TV shows. Actually, we have an episode coming up where we're going to be reviewing the new Super Mario Brothers movie, as well as doing a retrospective on the 1993 Super Mario Brothers movie. And I'm also appearing on a podcast called Nostalgia Time with Kid Champagne, where we discuss 80s and 90s pop culture. We've got an episode coming up on Dick Tracy. I've always got something going on in the pipeline.
All righty. Heading over to you, Dustin. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Well, I collect horror movie stuff on my YouTube, which I have been unable to really do much work on due to having 5 alarm fires in my life all day, every day for a year. But I have a lot of great stuff shot, and I think I'm almost in a place where I can start putting things up again. So sorry everyone who follows me has had to wait so long. I'm the Crypt of Horrors on YouTube, and trying to shift that into Cryptaxis, which is my Twitter name. That's where you can find me a lot, as Cryptaxis on Twitter. And my Instagram for the horror collection is also the Crypt of Horrors, with that name like shift in there as well.
All righty. Heading over to you, Tammy. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Well, I am your fiance. I go on this channel and another one, talk about movies, listen to everybody else's thoughts about them. I collect stuff myself. And, well, today was actually 70 degrees here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, which means my car will be coming out soon and be hitting the car shows.
All righty. Looking forward to that. Heading over to you, Jake. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Hello, my name is Kotobukijake. I am the co-host, or have been in the past the co-host of SeptumSin versus the World. We're kind of on a little bit of a break right now, but we'll still be talking about the Love Brew here in a couple of weeks, so that'll be a lot of fun. And meanwhile, I keep very busy. I have a gig working at the local library system. I also am co-founder and one of the operating partners of RVA Homegrown Natives. We grow native plants. And of course, this time of year is a very busy time of year. If we're not actually trying to grow stuff, we're at market or trying to sell stuff, or I even had a speaking gig with the Native Plant Society this past week. So I always got something going on there. and all kinds of other stuff too. But I do try to make time to get stuff watched each week. So join these fine folks for their discussions. And of course, an animation month was kind of up my alley. I'll be happy to have enjoyed what we've done so far, and I look forward to what else we have coming up this month.
Alrighty, heading over to you, Brandon. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do?
Well, I'm SeptumSin. I formerly was on a channel called SeptumSin versus the World, but one day it'll come back. I've got a lot of projects, but none of them are in a stage where I can really go into them yet. But I am a part of another show called Schlockaholics, where we talk about all that lovely schlock. We do Schlock Talk on Mondays, and it starts around 8 Eastern time and goes a little bit past while this show is on. So I'm partially on that and then partially on this on Mondays. And then, of course, every other week we discuss some really fun B-movie schlock. We actually were looking at 2 short films recently by a new guy on the block for Face Melt Productions, Night of the Axe and Spirit Board, which are both very fun slasher films and well worth the time if you haven't checked it out. So you should check out a good old Face Melt Productions if you want to check those short films out on Vimeo. But definitely check out our discussion as well, because we had fun with that. And we'll be coming up with some new ones shortly as we figure out what order to do them in. So it's going to be a fun month in April, I think.
Alrighty. And my name is David Straggy. I'm one of the founding fathers of Inside Movies Galore. So thank you for coming along with us on this fantabulous journey that we've been having. I think it's been an interesting selection of animation so far. But I also moonlight under a different channel called Delusions of Grandeur, where we took a break this last Sunday, and I guess I'll be looking over to Forrest to see what he's chosen for this next Sunday as we get back into the curriculum of things. But I plan on doing another video pickup video, as I've had a lot of pickups lately. So look out for that. And I am still in the editing process of an anthology that involves quite a few Wisconsin filmmakers. So hopefully I'll be able to work on it now that I have no set schedule. In any case, like, share, and subscribe. And hopefully you get a chance to check us out next week as we go into, I believe it, I think, Brandon, did you mention it? The Black Cauldron next week, right?
Yep, that's your pick. We're definitely we're going to Disney for a light-hearted film about that young families should all see.
Yeah, definitely. So definitely keep your eyes out for that next week, Monday, and hopefully we'll see some new listeners out there. We hope to entertain, and we just have fun. So in any case, let us know down in the comments what you thought of our discussion, and we'll see you next time. Everyone say good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Night, everyone.
I'm Batman.